She filed for custody after abandoning them for a decade, but she had no idea what this single father had built and what her children had become.
10 years later, she returned and was shocked to see his achievements. You think you can just reappear after 10 years and hug the children you abandoned, like you never destroyed them. Jackson Hayes snapped, blocking the doorway. You left 5 babies with a broke man with nothing but your lies. And now that we're standing tall, you suddenly remember you're a mother. His voice shook with controlled fury. This house wasn't built with bricks. It was built with sacrifice, sleepless nights, and their tears. So tell me, Savannah, why are you really here? The morning Savannah left was like any other. Cold toast, crying baby, bills piling like a mountain Jackson couldn't climb. Except that day, the silence felt wrong, too hollow. The house was still, not because the kids were asleep, but because Savannah was gone. She left behind 5 children under the age of 12, and a scribbled note on the fridge. I'm sorry, Jackson. I can't do this anymore. I need to live. Please forgive me. No warning. No conversation. Just gone. Jackson stood in the middle of their tiny 2-bedroom rental home. Holding that note with shaking hands while his 3-year-old daughter, Ivy, tugged at his pants, crying for her mama. He didn't cry. Not then. Not when his neighbors whispered. Not when his mother begged him to let the kids go into foster care. He just said, "No one's taking my babies." From that day, Jackson Hayes became both mother and father, chef and janitor, counselor and coach. He pawned his wedding ring to buy diapers, took graveyard shifts, cleaning floors at a hospital, sold his car, and rode a bicycle to work. And when that wasn't enough, he started fixing cars in his backyard to earn extra money. Sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford. The kids, Micah, the oldest, stopped playing basketball so he could babysit after school. Chloe learned to cook by age 9. The younger 3 grew up too fast, too quiet. Savannah's name became a forbidden word. They buried her in silence, because silence hurt less than questions. Now Jackson stood in the sunlit foyer of a 7-bedroom home he built with his own hands. One nail, one blueprint, one dream at a time. The hardwood gleamed. Family photos lined the staircase. The kids were grown, strong, brilliant. Then came a letter. No return address. No remorse in the handwriting. Dear Jackson, I know I don't deserve this, but please, I want to see them. I've changed. Let me explain. He didn't scream, didn't curse, just sat still, staring at it until Micah walked in from the garage. Now, a young man with oil-stained hands and sharp eyes that had seen too much. Micah took the letter, read it in silence, and said only 4 words. She doesn't exist to us, but she did now. She was back. And this time, she wanted something. You abandoned 5 children, and now you say you came to reclaim them. Micah's voice cracked like thunder as he stood between his siblings and the woman they no longer recognized. You don't get to call yourself our mother now. You lost that title the day you walked out without a backward glance. Savannah's hands trembled, but her chin stayed high. You don't understand. No, Jackson said coldly, stepping forward. You don't get to rewrite the story. Not after we've lived through every painful chapter without you. The front gate buzzed. Jackson had almost ignored it. He was pouring coffee when the security system blinked red. Visitor detected. He looked at the screen, and the mug slipped from his fingers. Ceramic shattered. Hot liquid splashed across his slippers. There she was, Savannah, older, yes. Gaunt cheeks, hollow eyes, trembling lips, but undeniably her. 10 years hadn't erased her, only changed her face into something haunted. Jackson's heart didn't beat faster. It froze. He pressed the intercom. State your name. Her voice cracked through the speaker like a ghost trying to breathe. It's me, Jackson. Please let me in. He didn't answer. Micah came out from the garage and saw the monitor. Is that? Jackson didn't reply. He just walked toward the front door and opened it. The air between them was sharp, with unfinished stories. The silence screamed. Savannah took a step forward, suitcase in hand. I just want to see them. Jackson's jaw clenched. They don't want to see you. I had no choice. He raised his hand. Don't start. But it was too late. The kids, hearing the commotion, began to gather at the staircase. Chloe, now 17 and wise beyond her years, gasped. Ivy, now 13, froze mid-step, her eyes wide with panic. Micah stepped in front of them like a soldier defending a castle. You don't belong here. Savannah's eyes brimmed. I gave birth to every one of you, and you left every one of us. Micah spat. We were just kids. I raised them. I was 10 when I stopped being a child. You don't get to talk like you're one of us now. Jackson said nothing. His silence was louder than Savannah's sobs. She reached into her bag and pulled out papers. I got help. Therapy. Recovery. I've been clean for 4 years. I want to be a part of their lives. Even if it's from a distance. Clean from what? Ivy whispered. Savannah hesitated. From what? Jackson repeated. Louder. Her voice cracked. I had a drug problem. I hid it well. But back then, I couldn't cope. I was drowning. The words hit the room like an earthquake. All the unspoken questions finally had a name, and the name was betrayal. Jackson stared at her. And now, Savannah lifted her chin. Now, I want to fix it. I'm here to reclaim my place. A long pause. Then Micah stepped forward. Your place is in our past. He closed the door in her face. But as he turned around, Jackson's expression wasn't satisfied. He knew this wasn't the end. Savannah wasn't going away quietly. Inside the house, the air was thick with confusion. Micah slammed the door harder than necessary, his chest heaving. Chloe leaned against the wall, her hands clenched into fists. Ivy had retreated halfway up the staircase, tears silently rolling down her cheeks. The twins, Noah and Nina, only 10, stood unsure, watching everyone's faces for clues on how to feel. Jackson leaned against the wall and exhaled. Everyone go upstairs. I'll handle this. But they didn't move. She said she was on drugs. Chloe asked. All these years and she couldn't even tell us that. She couldn't tell us anything because she didn't want to. Micah snapped. She just disappeared, and now she thinks she gets to be forgiven with a few tears and a rehab badge. Jackson ran a hand down his face. It's not that simple, son. Micah turned on him. Then make it simple. Tell her to leave for good. Jackson stared at the front door. Do you think I haven't? She's not just here to say sorry. I saw it in her eyes. She wants something. Chloe whispered. Like what? Jackson didn't answer. But deep down, he had a sinking feeling. A gut instinct that Savannah hadn't just come back for apologies or closure. She'd come back for control. Later that night, Jackson sat alone in the kitchen. The old notebook lay open on the table. His journal from the first year after Savannah left. He turned the pages slowly, stopping at a photo taped to one. Savannah with baby Ivy in her arms, smiling like a woman with the world in her hands. He almost didn't hear Micah walk in. You still love her? The boy-turned-man asked. Jackson closed the notebook. I love what I thought she was. Micah sat across from him. Do you think she's dangerous? Jackson's silence said more than words could. Micah leaned forward. Then let's protect our family. You don't have to do it alone anymore. A flicker of pride warmed Jackson's chest. That boy had seen too much. Sacrificed too early. But he'd grown into a man who understood what mattered. Before either of them could say more, Jackson's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. The voice on the other end was sharp. Mr. Hayes, this is from the county family court. Miss Savannah Hayes has filed for partial custody. You've been served. Jackson's grip tightened on the phone, as rage turned his breath shallow. She wasn't here for peace. She was here for war. Jackson didn't sleep that night. The letter from the county court sat on the dining table like a loaded weapon. He'd read it 5 times, and every time the same words hit like a punch to the chest. Petition for custody reinstatement. Petitioner, Savannah Hayes. He kept pacing, staring at the front door like Savannah might come back in the dead of night and steal the children while they slept. In the morning, he gathered them in the living room. No one was smiling. No one had to be told something was wrong. I need to tell you something. He began slowly, trying to stay calm for the younger ones. Micah already knew. He had overheard the phone call, and hadn't said a word. Chloe watched her father, trying to guess if it was about bills or sickness. Ivy sat on the armrest beside him, already afraid. Jackson looked at their faces. 5 reasons he hadn't broken, and swallowed the lump in his throat. Savannah filed for custody. The room fell into terrifying silence. Then Ivy stood up sharply. What does that mean? She wants us to live with her now. She thinks she has the right, Jackson said, trying to contain the growing storm in his voice. She wants joint custody, partial visitation, supervised for now. Micah exploded. She doesn't get visitation. She gets nothing. She walked out. She left 5 kids behind like we were a bag of trash. I know, Jackson said. Believe me, I know. Chloe whispered, can she win? Jackson hesitated, then answered truthfully, it's possible. She's been clean. She went through rehab. The system sometimes gives people second chances, even if they don't deserve it. Ivy snapped, her voice shaking. This isn't fair. Micah stood. No, we're not letting her play mom now, just because she feels like it. We can fight this. We will, Jackson said. But we need a lawyer, and we need to prepare. She's not just trying to walk back into our lives. She's trying to rewrite history. That evening, Jackson met with a longtime friend, Leslie Porter, a civil attorney who had once offered to help him pro bono during hard times. After reviewing the documents, Leslie's face tightened. She's filing under grounds of reformation and maternal rights. This isn't casual. Someone is backing her. She hired a real legal team. Jackson's hands curled into fists. She's not getting them. She might not want them, Leslie said slowly. She might want something else, like a payout, leverage. Jackson's heart sank. She knows we've done well. Leslie nodded. It's either custody or cash. She's testing how far she can push. When Jackson got home, Micah was waiting on the porch with a file in his hands. What's that? Jackson asked. I started documenting everything. The struggles, the nights you didn't eat, so we could, the way Chloe learned to cook when she was 8, Ivy's therapy, all of it. Jackson looked at his son in awe. You shouldn't have had to be this strong, he said. Micah shrugged. Maybe not. But now I'm strong enough to make sure she never hurts us again. Inside the house, Savannah's face flickered on the front security monitor once more. Standing outside, phone to her ear, she wasn't going away. But this time, neither were they. 3 days later, Jackson walked into the county courthouse, with Micah by his side, and Leslie Porter, leading the charge. His palms were sweaty, but his mind was steel. He wasn't just fighting for custody. He was fighting for the truth that had kept his family alive all these years. Savannah was already inside. She sat at the opposite end of the courtroom table, dressed modestly in a navy blue dress, her hair neatly pulled back. The years had aged her, but she still wore the same calculating look. Jackson remembered. She didn't look at him, not once. Her attorney, a overly polite man named Mr. Radcliffe, stood and addressed the court first. Your Honor, my client has shown remarkable rehabilitation. She's completed a certified drug recovery program, maintained for years of clean living, and now seeks to re-establish a relationship with her children. He turned slightly, almost as if trying to appeal to Jackson's humanity. Miss Hayes is not seeking full custody. She only wishes for supervised visits, limited at first, so she can slowly rebuild trust and presence in her children's lives. Jackson didn't blink. When it was Leslie's turn, she stood without theatrics and walked to the center of the room with a single file in hand. Your Honor, she said calmly, these are records of Mr. Hayes's full custody. Responsibilities over the past 10 years. Every school registration, every hospital visit, every therapist's note, every meal logged and bill paid on his own. She paused, then added, these children have not just survived without their mother. They have thrived, but not without cost. Emotional, mental, even physical strain. The mother had 10 years to return. She did not. Only now, when Mr. Hayes and his children are stable and successful, does she emerge? Judge Raymond, an older woman with sharp glasses and a reputation for cutting through emotional fog, leaned forward. Miss Porter, are you alleging this is a financial move? Leslie nodded. We believe Miss Hayes may have ulterior motives beyond reunion. At that moment, Micah stood up from the bench behind them. Your Honor, he said, voice steady, despite his shaking hands. Can I speak? The judge hesitated. You're not of legal counsel. I'm her son. The one she left behind. After a pause, the judge motioned, come forward. Micah approached the stand like he was walking into battle. She didn't just leave us, he said, voice rising with every word. She destroyed us. Chloe used to cry herself to sleep every night. Ivy didn't speak for months. And my dad. He gave up everything. He worked himself sick just to make sure we didn't end up on the street. He turned, eyes locking with Savannah. And now that we finally built something, now that we have a home, peace, love, you want in. You don't get to pick up the ending, after you threw away the beginning. Savannah's lip trembled. The judge watched quietly. Then she said, "We will reconvene in 1 week with further testimony." Court dismissed. As Jackson walked out with Micah beside him, Savannah followed them out into the hallway. "Jackson," she called. He turned slowly. "I'm not here for money," she said, her voice low. "I'm sick." I didn't know how else to tell them. Jackson stared at her. "Sick?" She nodded. "I have cancer. Stage 3. I don't want to take them. I want to say goodbye." For the first time in a decade, Jackson saw her cry. And for the first time, he didn't know how to feel. The living room was silent, but the air was loud with conflict. Jackson sat in his armchair, elbows on his knees, head in his hands. Across from him, the children huddled on the couch like survivors of a storm. Emotionally raw, mentally stretched, and visibly shaken. Savannah's revelation rang in their ears. "I have cancer. I just want to say goodbye." Micah stood by the window, fists clenched. He hadn't said a word since they returned from court. Chloe broke the silence first. "What if she's not lying?" Micah turned on her. "You can't be serious." "I'm not saying we forgive her," she said, her voice trembling. "But if she's dying?" Jackson raised his head. "That's exactly what she wants." "But what if it's true?" Ivy asked, her voice a whisper. Micah stormed forward. "You know what's true. She left. She vanished. For 10 years, she didn't care if we were alive or dead. And now she pulls the cancer card, and suddenly we're supposed to care." "She's still our mother," Chloe said quietly. Micah pointed a finger at her. "She gave up that right." "Enough," Jackson said, slamming his hand on the armrest. Everyone froze. He took a deep breath, his voice lowering. "I'll find out the truth myself." That night, Jackson visited the clinic Savannah claimed was treating her. Leslie had called ahead. The doctor confirmed Savannah had been diagnosed. Stage 3 lymphoma. Chemotherapy had started 3 weeks ago. He sat in his car afterward, staring at the wheel, unsure if what he felt was relief, anger, or dread. She wasn't lying. The next day, Savannah returned. Invited this time. Jackson told the kids she would come by, only for an hour, no more. When she arrived, her face was thinner. She wore a scarf over her head. The room was ice-cold in silence. Micah refused to come downstairs. Chloe sat stiffly with Ivy and the twins. Jackson stood by the kitchen door, arms crossed. Savannah looked at each of them, tears filling her eyes. "I know I don't deserve this. I didn't come to ask you to love me. I just want the chance to say what I never did." No one spoke. "I was broken," she whispered. "I used drugs to survive the pain I didn't know how to face. When Ivy was born, I fell apart. Postpartum depression, fear, and then addiction." She looked at her daughters. "I wasn't strong like you. I didn't know how to ask for help." Jackson saw Ivy's eyes begin to glisten. "I've made peace with the fact that I may not have much time, but I couldn't leave this world without trying. Just trying to say, I'm sorry." She pulled a small envelope from her pocket and placed it on the coffee table. "These are letters, one for each of you." And then, before anyone could ask her to stay, Savannah stood. "I won't ask for anything else." As she reached the door, Micah finally appeared at the top of the stairs, arms crossed, eyes like steel. "You want forgiveness, earn it. You don't get a goodbye just because you're dying." Savannah looked up at him. "I hope you never know what it's like to drown in regret." She left. No one moved. No one spoke. The envelope sat untouched, full of words that had arrived far too late. The following days felt like walking on broken glass. No one spoke about the letters. They remained sealed on the coffee table as though opening them might open old wounds too deep to close. Micah refused to even look at them. Chloe stared at hers every night before bed. Ivy secretly had already read hers 3 times. But she didn't tell anyone because it broke her. In her letter, Savannah had written, "I don't expect you to love me, Ivy. I just want you to know it wasn't your fault. You were the light in the darkest place I'd ever been. But the light hurt. I couldn't hold it. I'm sorry." Ivy hid it under her pillow like a dagger. Jackson, meanwhile, had been struggling. His mind went back and forth like a pendulum between rage and pity, forgiveness and fury. He hadn't read his letter. He couldn't, not yet. Then late one night, he got a call. It was Leslie. "I looked into something you might want to know." Jackson rubbed his forehead. "What is it?" "Savannah has a medical trust fund, She applied 2 weeks before she filed for custody. It pays out a monthly amount to any legal guardian or caregiver assigned to her or her dependents. Jackson sat up straight. You're saying if she gets visitation, she gets money. Every time one of the kids shows up in her care, even for a weekend, Jackson's stomach turned. So it was never about love. It was a setup. Leslie hesitated. Not necessarily. Maybe both. But money is definitely involved. The next morning, Jackson gathered the kids again. I have something to tell you, he said slowly. There's a fund. A financial incentive attached to her getting custody, or even visitation. Micah didn't even flinch. I told you. Chloe's voice shook. You think she planned this? I think she planned to come back once we had something she could benefit from. Chloe stood. Then why did the letter sound real? Because sometimes, Jackson said quietly, people can mean two things at once. Regret and desperation. Ivy finally spoke. She said I was the light that hurt her. Everyone looked at her. I read it. She whispered. She blamed herself. She blamed me, and she said sorry. But now I don't know if she meant any of it. Micah was pacing. So what do we do? Fight her in court again? Jackson sighed. No, we wait. I'll confront her. That afternoon, he drove to Savannah's temporary apartment near the clinic. She opened the door, looking tired, eyes dim. I know about the fund, Jackson said without emotion. I know what happens if the kids visit. Savannah didn't deny it. I didn't come back for money, she said. But when I realized I could get help with treatment, I didn't say no either. You should have. She stepped back. I didn't expect forgiveness, but I wanted something. Some kind of peace. Jackson looked her straight in the eye. You want peace. Stop trying to win them over like a mother. Try being honest like a human being. And then he walked away. When he got home, he found Micah sitting in the garage, wiping down the hood of Jackson's old truck. She's still playing games? Micah asked. Jackson nodded. But we're ending the game on our terms. Micah looked up. What does that mean? It means I'm adopting all of you. Formally, legally. Your mother left you. I never will. Micah blinked, then nodded. 2 weeks later, the family courtroom was packed again. This time it wasn't Savannah filing a motion. It was Jackson. He was filing to adopt all 5 children, legally severing Savannah's parental rights. Savannah was there, sitting silently with a different look this time. Not pride, not desperation. Something quieter. Defeat, maybe. Jackson stepped into the witness box. His voice was calm, but each word carried the weight of 10 years. I'm not trying to erase anyone, he began, but I've earned the title of father. Not just by blood, but by battle. I changed diapers, sat through fevers, stayed up on exam nights. I carried 5 lives on my back when no one else would. He turned toward Savannah briefly, but didn't look at her long. I've been a single parent, and I've been enough. But more importantly, they, my children, are a complete family. Without the pain of someone who keeps disappearing and reappearing only when it's convenient. The judge turned to Savannah. Miss Hayes, do you wish to contest the adoption motion? Savannah stood, shakier now than the last time. No, Your Honor. Gasps rippled behind her. Jackson's eyes widened. He hadn't expected that. Savannah took a breath. I've hurt them enough. And I've realized biology doesn't make you a parent. Presence does. I haven't been present. Jackson has. He's their father in every way. She reached into her purse and pulled out the original letters. I rewrote them, she said softly. These are the real ones. No agenda. No money attached. Just my truth. The judge paused, then nodded. The court accepts. Outside, the sun was blinding as they exited. Jackson stood near his car, watching Savannah approach. She handed him the envelope of new letters. I'm leaving town. Going back to my mother's in Arizona for treatment and peace. He looked down at the envelope, then at her. Why didn't you fight today? Because for once, I needed to do something right. Micah and the girls stood a few feet away, watching. Savannah turned to them. I won't ask you to read what I wrote. But if you ever wonder whether I loved you, just know I always did. I just didn't know how to love. Then she looked back at Jackson. You saved them. Thank you. She got into a waiting cab and left. Quietly this time. No drama, no threats. Just a woman finally realizing what she could never reclaim. That night, Jackson lit a fire in the backyard. The kids gathered around him, the letters in his hand. Should we read them? Chloe asked. Micah stared at the flame. No. Jackson handed them to him. Micah threw them into the fire. They watched the paper curl and burn, letting go of the past. For the first time in years, there was no tension, just silence and healing. I love you all, Jackson whispered. The kids leaned in. No one said a word. They didn't have to. 1 month later, the adoption hearing took place. No drama, no objections, no Savannah. Judge Raymond looked down at Jackson Hayes, standing proudly with his 5 children in a straight line beside him. I've reviewed the petition, she said, peering over her glasses, and I must say, in all my years, I've rarely seen such unanimous support from children of this age range. You've done something extraordinary, Mr. Hayes. Jackson swallowed hard. Thank you, Your Honor. But I didn't do it alone. They made me strong. Micah, tall and broad-shouldered, squeezed his father's arm. Chloe clutched Ivy's hand while the twins stood in matching outfits, beaming. I hereby approve the legal adoption of Micah Hayes. Chloe Hayes, Ivy Hayes, Noah Hayes, and Nina Hayes, the judge announced. A wave of emotion flooded the courtroom. The bailiff clapped quietly. Leslie wiped a tear. And Jackson couldn't stop the tears anymore. They were his. Forever. After the hearing, the family walked out of the courthouse into warm sunlight and a chorus of cheers from friends, church members, and neighbors who had shown up in support. Micah whispered to Jackson, "You gave us a name and a future." Jackson smiled. "You gave me purpose." That weekend, they hosted a celebration at the house. The living room overflowed with laughter, food, and friends. For once, the walls didn't echo with fear or guilt. They vibrated with joy. Ivy gave a toast during dinner. "I used to think our story started the day Mom left," she said, holding up her glass of juice. "But now I realize it started the day Dad decided to stay." Everyone raised their glasses. Even Micah, who had always been the quiet protector, wiped away a tear. That night, Jackson stood alone in the backyard. The stars above blinked softly. He pulled out his old notebook and wrote one final entry. "We were broken, we were abandoned, but we rebuilt with love, sweat, and faith." She left, yes, but I stayed, and staying made all the difference. They are not my stepchildren. They are my legacy, my beginning and my end. And now we are whole. Just then, Ivy stepped outside and wrapped her arms around him from behind. "Come in, Dad," she whispered. "We're doing karaoke, and Micah promised to sing." Jackson chuckled. "Now that I can't miss." As they walked inside, Jackson looked around the house one more time. No shadows, no ghosts, just family. 6 months later, a letter arrived, official, stamped with the county seal. Notification of death, Savannah Hayes. She had passed quietly in a hospice in Arizona. No fanfare, no demands, just a final request. Burial in her hometown, and a short letter addressed to the Hayes family. Jackson opened it at the kitchen table, surrounded by his children. "I didn't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm grateful for your mercy. Jackson, thank you for raising them when I couldn't." To Micah, Chloe, Ivy, Noah, and Nina. "I know I can't ask for love, but I hope you live boldly without my shadow. I was weak, you are strong. Let this be my last goodbye, not for closure, but for your freedom. Savannah." They stood in silence for a long moment. Then Ivy whispered, "She was broken, but maybe she was trying." Micah sighed and nodded. "Doesn't mean we forget. But maybe we let go." They didn't attend the funeral, but they sent flowers. White lilies and sunflowers. Jackson signed the card, "From the children who survived." Moving forward, the garage business Jackson had built expanded into a full-service auto center, Hayes Family Auto. Micah became co-owner and manager, while Chloe headed to college with a scholarship for environmental science. Ivy pursued journalism. The twins were already creating chaos in the school's robotics club. One evening, Jackson sat on the porch with Leslie, watching the kids play tag in the yard like years of pain had never existed. "I used to think I failed," he said, sipping sweet tea. "That the day Savannah left was the day everything shattered." Leslie smiled. "Sometimes things need to break before they can be rebuilt, right?" He nodded. "I didn't give them riches, but I gave them presents, and that was enough." Inside, the walls were now covered in new photos, birthdays, science fairs, high school dances, family dinners. Not a trace of Savannah, not out of spite, but because they had made room for something greater. A legacy of love earned. Later that night, Jackson wrote one final line in his journal. The last page. We weren't the family I planned, but we became the family we needed. And in that, we found everything. He closed the book, turned off the light, and walked upstairs to kiss his children goodnight.